Welcome back to the DIY Off-Grid channel. I am your host, Rancher Pete, and in this episode, we're venturing into the topic of energy self-sufficiency. Now, as you may or may not know, this is one of the most common topics that comes up during our live streams, and because of that, I wanted to make sure to put together this segment to address it for all of our viewers who live both on and off the grid. As we close 2024, just a month away from 2025, improvements in technology have come to the point where it's not only practical to live with completely self-sufficient energy production. In fact, I'd venture to say it's more cost-effective to do so as well. Now, it's not without its challenges, but if you follow my steps and plan accordingly, it is entirely doable. Let's dig into what makes powering an off-grid home so unique and the hurdles homesteaders face in keeping the lights on. Now, off-grid homesteads often rely on renewable energy like solar, wind, or micro hydro systems, all of which we cover on our channel here. These are excellent for sustainability, but they all come with a catch. The simple fact that nature is unpredictable. Solar power, a few cloudy days, or inclement weather can drastically reduce energy output, leaving you scrambling to conserve power. Wind power, it's great if you're in a consistently windy area, but if the breeze dies down, so does your electricity. Micro hydro systems, seasonal changes can definitely affect water flow, making it unreliable or just simply unusable during the dry months, as with the seasonal creek we have here at our own ranch. The key challenge here is energy consistency. Now, without a connection to the grid, you can't rely on backup power unless you have alternative systems in place, like a backup generator or battery storage. Now, speaking of storage, let's talk about batteries. They're essential for off-grid living, and it does take effort to make sure a system is sized appropriately. As far as battery capacity is concerned, batteries do have a finite capacity, so unless you get yourself a humongous battery pack like the one I have behind here, you might need a carefully managed usage during high demand periods. Regarding lifespan, over time, batteries degrade, potentially requiring costly replacements every 5 to 15 years, and depending on the type and usage patterns. Now, fortunately, if you go through our free consultation process, simply sign up for the DIY battery sign-up form at allthingsoffgrid.com. We walk you through the process of correctly sizing the battery and your solar system to last several decades. Now, expense, as far as the off-the-shelf batteries that are out there, they're ridiculously expensive. I mean, if you've priced out a Tesla Powerwall or equivalent system from numerous brands out there, whether it's Anker, EcoFlow, Bluetti, Simplify, or others, rest assured you will never see a return on investment. Those batteries will degrade before that period if you cycle them daily. Now, however, with our DIY battery builds, we can not only guarantee a reasonable ROI, you'll be sure to have enough capacity to spare to get you through more than a few days of poor energy generating conditions. This makes energy planning critical. Homesteaders must constantly monitor their production and consumption to avoid running out of power. And quite frankly, this is where things can get really tricky if you don't have any experience sizing systems based on your actual energy demand. Now, another potential challenge can be maintenance, though this really depends on the generation method and your local environmental conditions more than anything. This is the primary reason why I personally recommend solar panels more so than anything that involves turbines, as moving parts have a tendency to wear out over time. My viewers often ask me, how long does a solar panel last? And just about every panel today usually has at least an 85% guaranteed power output after 25 years. And some of the better, higher quality panels can definitely exceed that output over 50 years. Now, I won't get too deeply into this topic for the sake of brevity on today's show, but if you want a long-lasting, reliable solar setup, look specifically for N-type semiconductor panels and invest more on high-quality charge controllers and inverters, as that will always be the weakest point of any solar setup. Now, the biggest factor to all of this simply comes down to one of price. As we've covered on our channel time and time again, going with a solar contractor is quite possibly the worst decision you can possibly make for a solar setup. We routinely bring out the Wood Mackenzie report that shows the average customer acquisition cost for solar contractors in the United States have been about over 85 cents per watt. Now, just for context, that's pretty much how much all the hardware costs for a typical solar setup. So for a 10 kilowatt solar system, which should be consistent and sufficient for most average homes across the country, it should end up costing around under $8,500 for the equipment and all the relevant hardware. However, a solar contractor, they're going to have to charge the hardware costs plus the aforementioned customer acquisition costs, labor costs, permit costs, and any other operational overhead they have, plus the markup to generate a profit. Now, that explains why contractors typically quote $3 to $4 per watt, even with a cheaper grid-tie inverter, not even factoring any energy storage batteries into the mix. And that's averaging anywhere from 3 to 10 years for a return on investment, depending on your current utility rates. As a channel that discusses DIY projects, that's how we really bring down the ROI terms for solar and storage. With hardware costs under $1 a watt, ROI on solar can be as little as a year in some parts of the country, or even less here in California. Throw in one of our large DIY battery systems and you can still end up getting an ROI comparable with the solar contractor for just solar only. Of course, if you want the details on the actual numbers, or if you have friends, family, or neighbors who are interested in solar and just want a second opinion, please sign up for our DIY battery forum at allthingsoffgrid.com, or you can tap on my TikTok profile and tap on that sign up button so I can go over all the numbers with you one-on-one. Now, living off-grid is definitely a rewarding lifestyle, but it does demand preparation, resourcefulness, and resilience, especially when it comes down to energy production. Balancing sustainability with reliability is quite a challenge, but it's one that makes myself, along with many other homesteaders, embrace. Thanks for joining me on the DIY Off-Grid channel today. If you're thinking about off-grid living or just curious about the challenges, I hope this gave you some valuable insight. Now, until next time, stay inspired, keep living green, and if you would like me to cover any other topics, please comment or leave me a message. God bless everyone.